And a good morning, a good cool morning this morning. I'm showing 38 degrees here at our studios. Lanny Ford along with you, Juju Phillips, as he joins us each week. We're a couple days late, Juju, but it's better to be late than not at all, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, Lanny, it is. As always, pleasure to join you anytime we can talk sports in the early morning. You bet.
Yeah. So last week, a big week. I was going to ask you, before we get into that game with LR football, would you consider, now this is a recency bias statement, of course, but has Wingate become pretty much the biggest rival for Lenoir-Rhyne in football?
I think so. Yeah, I do.
That wasn't the case 20 years ago, but with their success that they've had, I think that's a lot to do with it and Lenoir-Rhyne's success.
Yeah, and not only just in football, but some of the other sports, they're vying for championships.
Yeah.
The top is the largest, or the longest, I should say, rivalry, but Wingate, because they've won the overall award for athletic excellence at the South Atlantic Conference for each of the last 15, 16 years, something like that. So they are the ones that LR is shooting for, and the Bears have been second most of those years. And in football, they're the two winningest programs since 2010, when Lenoir-Rhyne had their pivot under Fred Goldsmith, and then to Mike Houston, and then a lot of the winning that took place over the last 15 years. That, since 2010, LR and Wingate have been the two winningest programs in the South Atlantic Conference. So, yeah, I would say so. They are definitely the number one, if you want to call it competitor or rival, whatever you want to call it. But, yes, it's the Bulldogs and the Bears for sure.
We just had a Bear alum just join us on the broadcast, Mike Probst. Mike, good morning to you. You remember Mike?
I sure do. Linebacker, West Lincoln product.
Yep,
sure do.
That is correct.
I think number 46, 48, I'm not sure. He's in the 40s, as I remember. If he's watching, he'll probably type it in there. But I think it was in the 40s, 40, number 46 at linebacker.
Better than I am at that. Travis, good morning. Ford, good morning. The one thing about it, would you say the turning point, you talked about Lenoir-Rhyne, Fred Goldsmith came in kind of the turning point at 46, Juju. The turning point with Lenoir-Rhyne was Fred Goldsmith came in. What would you say was the turning point for Wingate?
I think probably about the same time.
Yeah.
When Joe Reich,
I was thinking the same thing.
As the athletic director now, when he came on board, they started winning some more and being more consistent. The stability he provided, he'd been there for 15 to 20 years, 25 years, and so I think when LR started to win, Wingate was starting to win as well. And again, for the last 15 years, no teams have done it any better in the South Atlantic Conference than those two schools.
Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of schools inside the SAC have been very fortunate to be able to hold on coaches for, considerable amount of time. Wingate was one of those with Joe Reich, and now they've got a new head coach. Another team that had the same head coach for like a bazillion years was Mars Hill. Now they've changed.
They have, but they've stayed within their family, so to speak. They've elevated people that have been
that's why Wingate did the same thing, did they not?
They did. A long-time defensive coach for them is now the head coach and has won a lot of games in the last 2 years, made the playoffs last year. They're in a good spot again. I think they're 7-2 right now, have a good chance of winning again and moving on and making the playoffs. So, Mars Hill under Tim Clifton has been I think he's the second winningest coach all time in the SAC behind the guy over there, Carson Newman, Ken Sparks, and that's for sure. But they brought in Kevin Barnett, who was a former player at Mars Hill and has been an assistant coach for a long time, defensive coordinator, so they brought him in. So, again, the stability and the cohesiveness to go from one staff to the other, that certainly worked in the hands for both of those schools.
Yeah.
And in Newberry, their head coach, Todd Knight, has been there for a number of years. He's not a Newberry product, but he played at Gardner-Webb, coached a little bit at Gardner-Webb, but he has been at Newberry now for the better part of over a decade, and he has put that program, they're pretty much on solid ground as well. They're right now the South Atlantic Conference leaders coming into this year.
Yeah, and when you go back and you look, Juju, one game left here. The Bears sitting at 5-5, but the ones that they have lost have really kind of been heartbreakers. I mean, you're talking, except for a one-score game. Scott Cloninger, good morning, glad to have you. And this was a big game. This was in overtime. Give us a little recap on that Wingate game.
Well, the Bears jumped out to a nice lead. They led at halftime. They had as much as a 10-point lead going into the second half. It came back and forth, and then down the stretch, Lenore Ryan scored late and then allowed a touchdown by Wingate to tie the game. And then they went into overtime. Wingate scored on their first possession. LR came down and scored and decided to go for 2 points instead of kicking the extra point to send it into double overtime. So the game came down to a couple of plays. LR played really well in that game offensively. I think probably in the second half they got worn down a little bit. I think Wingate was probably a more physical football team, and they showed it in the second half. They just wore down the Bears. Their offense really came to life in the second half, and that's been the case against Wingate in the last 4 years, I think, since they've beaten LR each of the last 4 years by a combined total of 12 points. So they played really close games over the last 4 years since 2021, and it's been Wingate winning all 4 of those games. So it's a tough loss. It dropped the Bears completely out of any kind of playoff contention, and it lost to their number one rival as well. And it showed the Bears have lost 5 games this year. 3 of those games they led in the second half and had a lead get away from them. So they got to play better in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. And that's one thing that I'm sure that they're looking at improving when the off season begins very shortly.
You look. I was just clicking on the history with Wingate, and the first interesting stat that came up to me in the last 10 matchups, they're 5-5. That's about as competitive as you can get.
Yeah, the Bears won a couple of exciting games in 2018 and 2019. Last-second wins, overtime wins, and there for a long time. Right after Mike Houston left in 2013, I believe, 2014. After that, it's been pretty much even. The Bears and the Bulldogs over since 2015, they've pretty much been an even thing. Bears led for a while, and now Wingate has come back 4 straight wins. It's been, like I said, it's been a really good rivalry. I think both schools look at each other as rivals, and they want to one-up each other. They've been the top 2 programs in the conference in football and some of the other sports as well over the last decade.
The Bears are open this week, and then they'll wind up the season versus Catawba. That one's at home, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. It's the final home game, Senior Day, Letterman's Day, Alumni Day, all that happening next Saturday.
It's not the way you want to end it up. How much of an effect, we talk about it a lot from a D1 standpoint, but is D2 starting to experience some of the NIL portal type things, all the moving pieces that are going on?
Well, you see some of the bigger state schools in Division II continue to have success. Talking about defending national champ Ferris State, all the schools have been affected by their best players with eligibility moving up to Division I. Ferris State, defending national champions, number 1 in the rankings this year. Their quarterback last year is now the starting quarterback at Mississippi. Mm-hmm. So they've had guys. Wingate had their starting quarterback move up to Division I this year, I think at New Hampshire. So they've had some key players at quarterback and wide receivers moving up to Division I. So it has affected a lot of D2 schools. I think the whole question is going to come down in the fact that when you look at LR, they really were very heavy in the transfer portal last year. I think they signed 22 players out of the portal. That's probably way too much, where we've seen teams like Wingate just really dabble in the portal. We did the broadcast last week, and they had very few guys on their starting roster that were transfers. They had a few, but not nearly as many as LR and some of the other teams we've seen this year.
The one thing that you see, if I don't have any issue with D2 players moving up to D1. That's just another opportunity for them because some athletes kind of fall under the radar a little bit, and I think this has allowed that to happen. Now, when you see the lateral moves, that's the one thing that hurts you a lot. And I don't think anybody has really found that sweet spot on kind of how many players do we need to bring in because you lose some continuity, you lose chemistry when you make major changes like that.
You do, and that's what kind of the talk has been around here is, you got to be, you can't live in the portal, but you can certainly go in and, pick and choose in some certain positions that you might have a deficit of or a need to fill a certain position. But to live in the portal and sign basically a recruiting class of 20 to 25 people out of the portal, that's just not sustainable because, again, you have that instability because, for instance, next week when LR has their senior day, they will have 32 guys that'll be walking, or at least 32 seniors that they will recognize next week. Now, for a D2 school, that's really a lot. Usually it's 15 to 20. And when you got 32, that means that you have guys that come in for 1 year or 2 years and move on. I don't know if that's good for the program long term or not, but I think you're probably going to see, especially the private schools, try to go and bring in recruits, if not through the junior college ranks, maybe because you have them for more than a year, and then develop them. I think the whole key, Lanny, is bringing freshmen, develop them, and then retain them, make them stay. Force them, not force them, but sell them on not only their choice was a really good one at the beginning, but the choice to stay is also a good one.
Right. I agree. Mike Self, good morning. Sheila, good morning. Deborah, good morning. Glad to have you guys with us. I'm looking through the standings here, and the one school, I guess, that jumps out at me a little bit because they're new to the D2 ranks, relatively speaking, to the rest of the teams that are inside the SAC. That's Emory and Henry.
Yeah, they really came on the scene last year. I think they finished 9-2. They were just a nip of not making the playoffs. They almost made it last year. They gave Lenore Ryan fits last year. They beat the Bears up there and really had a chance to make the postseason. This year, again, they've been really good. Bears led that game. They played them here at home. They led 28-3 at halftime and had to hang on to win on a late field goal to win that game. And so, yeah, I mean, Emory and Henry's a team that's senior laden. They didn't have a lot of transfers either. They came up through and developed their own kids, signed their own kids, and kept them. And they are a team that, like Wingate, I think they're a little bit like Wingate. We saw Wingate last week, Lanny. A lot of their guys were red shirts, red shirt sophomores, red shirt juniors, red shirt seniors. Guys have been in the program for 2, 3, 4 years. And that stability is, I think, the main reason why they're year in and year out right near or at the top of the South Atlantic Conference. And I think Emory and Henry's trying to do the same thing.
Right. Kenneth Rhodes, good morning to you. Glad to have you. I'm going to ask you one more question. I'll let you go wherever you want to go. I saw, and I meant to mention this last time we talked, but the SAC is going to have a change at the top in leadership. Patrick Britz announced his retirement. It's going to be effective at the end of May of next year. Been there for 18 years, only the second commissioner of the SAC. Where do you think that, or how do you think that affects the conference as a whole? Because moving on and changing leadership after 18 years has got to have an effect.
Yeah, I don't know, and I know they just made it official, a week or two back. The SAC has been around for 50 years. I was surprised they really didn't celebrate that this year much at all. But they've only had 2 commissioners. Doug Eccles is the only other one. He lives out of Rock Hill, or used to.
Right.
And now Patrick Britz. I don't know where they will go in terms of what direction. Will they try to elevate somebody that's within the SAC right now, maybe somebody that's an athletic director in the SAC and move them up, or somebody that's maybe outside the area but has connections to this area and to this region? I don't know. I haven't heard any names mentioned or not. I have a couple of suggestions, but that's not my purview, so to speak. But it's there right now with everything going on in collegiate sports, especially at the Division II level. this is an important time. I don't say at a crossroads, but, will D2 survive, or how will they survive? What will the model be going forward with everything that's happening above them?
Dylan Tucker, Dylan's a graduate and former player at Wingate. You're a little bit late to the party there, my friend. We did talk about Wingate. You have to go back and re-listen to the thing of how Wingate has navigated their change at head coach and done well. Hope, thank you for the congratulations on the win. Catch me up on what else is going at Lenoir-Rhyne. I know basketball's getting underway. Is football starting to wind down? What else we got?
Well, we're coming into the postseason for some of the other fall sports, Lanny. Volleyball is contending for the South Atlantic Conference Championship. They're right behind Anderson and Wingate at the very top. And their postseason is coming up, I believe, week after next. Soccer starts Saturday, starts tomorrow. The LR men and women both finished runner-up in the South Atlantic Conference. Their tournament, their SAC tournament, and the playoffs start in the next couple of weeks. So there's going on. The other part is I wanted to mention is last night the word came down that former LR baseball player Justin Dean got a World Series trophy with the Los Angeles Dodgers, first ever LR player to be a part of a World Series champion. He got released and picked up by the San Francisco Giants, so he will be a San Francisco Giant starting spring training. A couple of other things. People have asked, and you've seen things probably online about the high school football state championships. Probably the games are going to be played here at Moretz Stadium on the campus of LR, December 13th, which is a Saturday. They haven't announced any plans in terms of what classifications, but we're hearing some things. Probably 3A and 4A state championship games will be played here on the 13th, which is a Saturday, which will be 2 games in one day. That's kind of what they're talking about. And then I believe some of the officials from the State Athletic Association will be on campus here next week to kind of finalize all those details. And that was a big thing. And then on December 14th, it's not necessarily Lenoir-Rhyne related, but there will be a college basketball game played on the campus of LR, and it's going to be Appalachian State versus High Point. Mm-hmm. They're going to play at Schufert Arena, who will be celebrating its 70th birthday this year.
Wow.
Formed in 1955 in many SD7, and fans will know many of the SD7 games in high school basketball and regional competition and high school sports plus LR. A lot of teams have played at Schufert, at that time Schufert Gym, now Schufert Arena. They'll be celebrating their 70th birthday this year, and part of that's going to be Appalachian versus High Point coming up on December 14th, which is a Sunday. Roughly
50 years ago, I played in that gym. The Southern District 7 used to have their conference tournament in that gym.
Wow.
And I hated it because it was longer than a high school gym, high school floor.
And a lot hotter, too. They got air conditioning.
Let's be honest, I was not a basketball player, but I played. I played because it was one of the only sports you could play coming up. We didn't have all the sports that they had then. And then I transitioned from basketball to wrestling my final 2 years in high school. But I've played a basketball game in there. Sure have.
Because you are an athlete.
Yeah, don't be confusing yourself on that one now. Don't go too far. I'm an old athlete. How about that? Let's do that. Anything else going on, my friend?
That's it. I told you before, we've hearing rumors about Michael Jordan maybe buying Rock Barn Club of Golf over the next couple of months, supposedly in talks. We'll see. Still checking on that story, but his name's been floating out there when it comes to golf and buying Rock Barn.
Needless to say, he can afford it.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so.
Can.
Thank you, my friend, for the time. We'll preview next week's season finale against Catawba one day. Just have to see how the schedules go, but appreciate you taking the time as always. And if you don't mind, hang on the line. I got a question for you after we get off the air.
All right. We'll see you later, Lanny. As always, thank you, my friend.
I appreciate it, my friend. That's Juju Phillips. Joins us each and every week, and we kind of get the breakdown and the scoop for Lenoir-Rhyne. And we'll wrap it up for today. And what have I not done? There we go. There we go. Hit the right button, Lanny. You guys have a wonderful weekend. High school football tonight. We will have on WLON. West Lincoln will be at home taking on West Wilkes. And then more action expands next week as we get away from these first-round buys where, if anybody cares, are absolutely ridiculous. You don't need first-round buys in high school football playoffs. For Juju Phillips, it's Lanny Ford. You guys have a great weekend. See you next week.